with you. Flip a doujin in the bed, I'm reading manga till it's two. Tell me that you love us if I go, I'm knowing that it's true. Cause you acting all moe and vanilla in my view. So this is for them waifus, straight 2D flex in my life, fool. If you fuck with him, tell you my dude. Let the beat right out, keep it nice and smooth, yo.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Weeaboos, the anime podcast where we get drunk and talk about anime. I'm Kyle.
I'm Hunter.
What do we drink tonight, Hunter?
We are drinking Orange Blossom, which is a Mandarin wheat beer from Tempe, Arizona.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like I see that all the time. It's a very Arizona beer, so.
Yeah, I need a second opinion because it was so weird after the first beer we drank. Yeah, it's good, but it's not something I'd go out and be like, fuck yeah, dude, let's get some Orange Blossoms.
Definitely. So before we actually get into the topic, I do want to, just voice a quick reminder that Anime Expo is in 2 weeks. So I will be there. If any of you want to meet up, just, get on the Discord and give me a shout out, or you can follow my Snapchat, which I'll probably post in the show notes. So if you want to see, if you aren't able to go, but you want to see what I'm up to at AX. So
also, if you're just in line for an autograph at 6 a.m., you might see
might be there. 6 a.m. is a little late for an autograph, but if you want to be there beforehand, I will be in line. So what is animation? If you're listening to an anime podcast, I'm sure you know the literal definition of animation, but what is animation in relation to anime? Anime is a medium that is dependent on visuals, yet I'm often trying to convince myself that the visual nature of anime is secondary to the plot. Similar to a catchy soundtrack or an attractive art style, good animation can be interpreted as a supplementary element, something that either briefly enhances or just distracts us from what's actually important. We've been taught not to judge something by the way it looks, and that teaching is entirely justified by the significant amount of great anime with bad or extremely limited animation. However, the level of excitement Sakuga makes me feel is just indescribable. That first week of a new anime season where every series is showing off their best animation honestly makes me feel like my heart is beating out of my chest. I feel like I'm in love. It is just outstanding. Animation itself is impactful. If it wasn't, people wouldn't be watching the Midoriya versus Todoroki fight countless times and shouting
so good
and shouting Yutaka Nakamura's name in the metaphorical streets. I think the dispute regarding the importance of visuals stems from the belief that valuing aesthetics makes us seem superficial.
Yeah, it's shallow, but who cares?
But because of this, people tend to view story and visuals as separate entities and feel as if they can only enjoy them independently of one another. So once again, what is animation in relation to anime? How is animation used to service the story and contribute to the overall work? Keep in mind, we're talking specifically about animation, not art style or aesthetics. Sakuga, as I sort of inferred, is a term used to reference scenes that are particularly well animated.
So animation, the obvious definition would be how one scene moves into another. But I think that it's really important because it is a visual thing. You say that you try to convince yourself that anime isn't visual and that the story stands up on its own. But if that were true, you would just read manga.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And even that's a visual style in a sense. Mm-hmm. So you would only read books or something if all you cared about was story, right, and imagining the things yourself. But I think that animation really brings to life the characters, and there's a lot of things that a director can change with how you perceive a character and the way that they move.
Definitely.
We always use this example, but in K-On!
I definitely am going to be referencing that example.
Oh, so. you already
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I'll leave it to Kyle. But animation really brings life to a character. Just the way that they move tells you a lot about them. Uh-huh. If you see somebody, mob it, with a kind of a slouch to them, or they're walking slowly, or they're walking, as if they're injured. It really tells you a lot about what the character's feeling, even without saying anything.
Definitely. Yeah. So A simplistic way of framing what I'm about to get into is that sakuga is a way to visually convey the fact that a specific moment is meaningful. Sometimes it's obvious, like a climactic fight, but other times the meaning is more subtle, like when a character is spinning a pencil or looking around nervously. So, to me, animation is how the characters act. And I mean that in the theatrical sense of the word. Animation is acting. Voice acting may breathe life into a character, but a vocal performance can only be as good as the personality of a character, a personality depicted by how a character moves and interacts with the world around them. And while that may seem pretty straightforward, putting that into practice is painstakingly difficult. We've used this example before, and Hunter tried to reference it, but in the final scene of the K-On! Movie, we get this shot of all the girls' legs as they're walking down the street, and we immediately know who's who. Another example is Lupin himself. If you haven't seen anything from the Lupin franchise, you can watch anything without audio or subtitles and still have a solid grasp on the character of Lupin through his very distinct movements. The creation of recognizable personalities can be achieved by following the 12 principles of animation introduced to us by the Disney animators Ollie Johnston and Frank Thomas in their book The Illusion of Life. We won't be talking about these principles in depth. If you're interested, I'd suggest watching a short video that demonstrates these principles, but instead we'll be focusing primarily on the principle of exaggeration.
There's interesting, if you are interested in animation and those 12 principles, this could be an aside, you don't have to put it in, but there is a video series by a group of guys that does video game work. They have a couple different series, but the main thing is called Extra Credits, and it's about video games and certain scenarios, talking about different things on video games, kind of akin to what we do, but in bite-sized video chunks.
Sure.
But one of the things is one of their spin-offs is called Extra Frames, and it's all about video game animation, because the main dude's a video game animator. But he has a video picking a video game and talking about each of the 12 principles and how it relates.
That's awesome.
And how that video game does really well.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that.
So if you want to check that out, that's really neat.
Awesome.
I don't think he's gotten to exaggeration yet. Do you know the 12 off the top of your head?
Off the top of my head, probably not. I mean, I know a few.
Name a couple, just so I'm wondering.
Like squash and stretch is one.
Yes, so he does that one with God, I think it was Mario, maybe.
That makes sense.
Example.
Going back to exaggeration, from a technical standpoint, animation strives to imitate reality and realistic movement. However, that seems counterintuitive, seeing that we often say animation is used to escape from the confines of reality. The rule for exaggeration is to maintain true to reality, just present it in a wilder form. In my opinion, the epitome of animation is seen here, in the exaggeration of emotion. Of course, good animation can be witnessed in moments of realism as well. An anxious girl can clutch her skirt in nervousness, causing her clothes to ruffle as she fidgets in place. But I feel like sakuga is utilized most effectively when the anime allows animation to abandon the literal and embrace the hyperbolic. The exaggeration of emotion relates back to when we talked about why we find fictional characters attractive, actually. It's the personification of feeling and emotion. We view the idea of how we find something attractive in our mind's eye, magnify it, and put it on paper. When we're in love, a white vignette doesn't fade into existence as sparkly shapes gently float behind us, but that's how love is portrayed in Kimi no Todoke, because it conveys the feeling of warmth and comfort. How do we understand the feeling of contempt as a sketchy black aura in Mob Psycho? It's because, strangely enough, we can relate to that emotionally unstable abstract concept of not having a clear mind when upset. The ability to create a visible embodiment of emotion is the best example of something that is simply done best in anime.
Well, another thing that's really neat about animation that you kind of jogged my mind on is that in animation, you can give things that are like inanimate objects expressions. You can have like a little floating robot ball, like bounce around in Glee or like start spinning.
That's
or
R2D2 and BB-8. Like, those have personality and they're robots. It's the way they're animated that brings them to life.
Exactly. And I think that that's, really powerful, and that kind of goes to exaggeration. Like, obviously you're not going to see something that's an inanimate object actually frown, but something in the animation and how the character moves can give you, an idea that they're feeling sadness. They don't have to frown.
Definitely. Do you have any more thoughts on that? Like, any instances of particularly good animation that stand out to you that were really impactful for any reason whatsoever? It could be maybe the Kizumonogatari films, or Redline, or even the latest, or the previous episode of Boku no Hero with the Todoroki fight.
Well, I mean, I'm somebody that's really big on battle scenes, so of course the animation from the Boku no Hero fight is really impressive to me, and I think it really conveyed the amount of power that these kids have. But one of my favorite instances of animation, and you can, say that this isn't an anime, but in Avatar: The Last Airbender, in Book 3, so the third season of the original series, there is a fight between a character named Zuko and a character named Azula. And they're both firebenders, which basically means they can throw fire around. I don't know why I feel like I have to explain all this, but one has blue fire and one has red fire. And seeing the animation in this fight and this is, there's reasons behind this, but this is the biggest fire we've seen yet in this show, which kind of shows how powerful these two characters are. Mm-hmm. Seeing the way they moved and the animation behind it, on top of what we covered a couple weeks ago with music, really gives you a sense of what's happening with the characters. Zuko's, all of his animation is very focused. Everything's very tight. Everything's like masterful. And Azula's is very shaky, very disoriented, very like she's losing her mind and she's going crazy, which is what's happening. And you can show it without there is not a word said, and you know exactly what the characters are feeling and how they work. So that's an instance of animation that really stuck with me.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like that instability is very present, and it's kind of the point that I was getting at, that animation can do something extremely well is portraying instability or emotion, and that wild quality of that fight in particular is done through the fight scene itself and how it's drawn, similar to how I referenced Mob Psycho, where when Mob goes out of control,
it's just like cross hatching and just like dark and it kind of gives you a sense of insanity, even without saying anything.
There are so many other examples. Like, I did think about maybe referencing the final fight in Sword of the Stranger, but although that is phenomenally animated, I feel like most of that is contributed to choreography, which is maybe...
Yeah, it's kind of a different topic in and of itself.
Right. So...
this wasn't specific to this question, but... S-Roboy 240. Yeah, so S-Robo I-240. High School of the Dead sniping through titties.
That's a pretty damn great scene in anime. Man.
Yeah, that's one of the greats, but I'm not sure if that was because of the animation quality that made that scene so enticing.
Of course, the best case scenario for all of this is when everything lines up perfectly. And that's what makes a masterpiece, is when everything is done to the best of their ability. The music, the animation, the context, the voice acting, the framing, everything.
Right,
Everything
it's not
aligns.
That you have separate elements, you have one cohesive piece that works together in every way.
Correct. So, animation...
it's almost like Nichijou in the fact that scene's extra well animated for comedic effect.
Exactly.
Whereas Nichijou, that's the entire plot of the show, is to animate things that are mundane, like failing a test
or wrestling a deer. That deer wrestling move would not be funny if it were not as well animated as it was.
Exactly. So, Nichijou will have these things happen that are just so boring, but animate them in a way that makes them extremely cool.
Yeah, definitely. So, animation is another one of those large-scale concepts we could cover for that we could cover from a multitude of angles, but is difficult due to the visual nature of anime compared to the audio nature of podcasting. So no topic is ever fully explored. I'd like to revisit animation again at some point, but surprisingly, it's one of the most underappreciated positions in the anime industry. You know, everyone tends to focus on directing or music.
Well, that's because animating, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but animating pays really bad.
It does.
Pays long, hard hours. And I mean, you are only like, if you get to animate something like this Todoroki fight, that is lucky, and you should be glad that you have that, because generally you're going to be animating slice of life or B level like
True.
garbage.
Yeah. So, anyways, I think we will move on to our listener question for this week. So, our question comes from Comic Fan 44. He asks, do you personally prefer original idea anime, so Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann, Little Witch Academia, Evangelion, or manga adaptations? He says, Full Metal, Hunter x Hunter. I tend to prefer anime original shows over adaptations, as many of them, unless mega popular, like One Piece, never get fully animated and end up becoming advertising for the source material, encouraging you to switch mediums to get the whole story. So, the question here is original anime versus adaptations. What do you think?
So I think that there's a mixture, right? I know that's a boring answer, but the things that are adapted from manga that are fully, done out to completion, such as, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, are fantastic. I mean, you have a lot of really good source material to work with, and as a studio, it makes a ton of sense. You're like, people really like this. If we make this, it will make money, like guaranteed. You don't have the risk of making an original series that people don't like. But on the other side, seeing something original and seeing it in anime form as it was meant to be in the anime form is really enticing, because we've said time and time again that if you adapt something, you lose something in the process. Yep. And when people make an original and they make it as an anime, and that's the entire point, then there's nothing to be lost. You're creating it for that medium, and you don't have to, you're not restricted by any source material. So things that have come out of that, like Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill, have been fantastic. But I think it's harder to do right, and it's riskier for a studio, is why we don't see them as often. I mean, it's obvious, business practice. Like, why take the risk if I can just crank out an idle anime based off this manga or something, and at least do good enough to pay the bills.
So I'll try not to reiterate as much as you said, but historically speaking, original anime are more likely to be regarded as classics. Cowboy Bebop, Madoka, Evangelion, Eureka 7, Utena, Kill la Kill, they're all original anime. An original anime is made to fit its intended medium. You don't have to worry about anything being lost or taken out or not translating well. Basically, there's less room for error. However, original anime are exceedingly rare due to the fact that, as you said, they're not as safe of a financial decision to greenlight a new show compared to simply adapting a popular manga or light novel. But because of this, adaptations are the standard. I don't read light novels, and I've been reading less manga, so everything I watch to a certain extent feels pretty original to me. That is, until, like the question asker asked, as a series abruptly ends and either has you wait years until the next season, or you just go read the manga. So what makes an adaptation really stand out, if it manages to have at least decent pacing, is animation, I think.
Let's take a drink to this, just because I haven't called one all night.
Sure.
I'm convinced this girl just doesn't have nipples.
No, they're just, for some reason, very
widely set.
Widely set.
Wide set nipples.
Man, that's like 90% of anime girls, if you had to justify their lack of nipples.
It's a strange world we live in.
So, let's talk about what we're watching.
The two most recent episodes of Shingeki and Boku no Hero. both good. You know, really making sure, like, getting ready for the final episode. Like,
Right.
I mean, that's obviously the point of these. So it's a little bit of a difference from last season of Boku no Hero, in which the episode, this episode, so episode 11 was like the huge episode with a lot of stuff happening, and then afterward was kind of like an epilogue in a way.
Well, you know, this season's going to be 24 episodes, right?
Wait, Boku no Hero is 24?
Uh-huh.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, dude. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Get some good news.
There you
Okay.
go.
But I thought, I mean, like last season, Boku no Hero's 11th episode was like the big one, and there was like an epilogue. So okay, now it makes more sense. Well.
So yeah, let's focus on Boku no Hero. I know you're very shocked by that news, but
Okay, yeah, because I thought it was going to finish the tournament arc and just end. I thought
Nope.
next episode they have to just skip to Bakugo versus Todoroki and just...
they can take their sweet time
Oh, shit.
because we have time to spare.
But they revealed a hero killer, which I know is going to make his way, maybe not into the tournament, but probably very soon after the end of it is when I expect him to show up. So was that the first character to die on the show? To actually die?
Well, we think he died.
He's like stabbed and dead in a pool of blood.
It's anime.
Okay. If that was the first guy to die, that kind of changes the dynamic of the show, and now some of
Definitely.
the students can be killed off. And I hope it's the purple ball kid, because that kid's annoying.
No, he's so
I hate
good.
him. But you know, seeing a couple of the fights wrap up relatively quickly, like, I don't know. Obviously, you know, they just need to have some of the time go by quicker, but you know, the fights in this one weren't as entertaining, I guess. I mean, obviously coming off of two really cool, like, specific fights, seeing this one was, seeing these two were just
Right.
But I do really respect it, and I hope that Todoroki does not use any ice, or doesn't use any fire versus Bakugo, and like Midoriya is the only person that could pull the fire out of him. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, that would be neat.
But I mean, I really don't know who's gonna win this fight, and that's what I love. Is I love coming into something and not being like, the hero's gonna win. How's he gonna win?
Right.
I actually don't know.
The hero's not even part of this fight.
Exactly.
So-
But I mean, who are you rooting for?
Man, Bakugo is just a character that I've never liked.
Yeah, he's kind of a dick.
I mean, but
like,
that's
all the time.
That's
his
how
entire
he's
character.
written. You know, you're not supposed to like him. I mean, I know the outcome. I've read the manga, so it's kind of hard to root for someone. But
No,
in
I'm
terms
rooting
of
for
characters,
Todoroki.
I like Todoroki better. So
Todoroki's a cool dude.
Attack on Titan. How was that?
So Attack on Titan, seeing Commander Erwin, like,
Oh my gosh, that was the best part.
holy shit, dude! Like, just gets his arm ripped up. Like, that's
Charge forward.
yeah. He like gets fucked up, and then he just continues to yell, "Charge forward!"
Yeah.
And then he comes back. It's like he just like, you can have my left arm or right arm or whatever.
Yeah.
He goes for it again. So that dude's a massive badass. I get through anime by thinking that talking is a free action, essentially. Like, if you're talking, time's not moving.
Sure.
It's kind of a drink. That's a
drink.
That's a wet.
That's a wet anime girl.
What was I saying?
Wet.
Not wet.
Characters talking.
Right. So characters talking is like a free action. So if there's action happening but characters are talking to each other, that's happening with no time.
Sure.
But I had to use that way too much this episode. They're like
I get
they're
it.
like standing on Titans, like being attacked, and they're like, I have
the name of
I
the
have
show.
some questions for you. Just like, you know, just keeps asking stuff. So it is ending in 12 episodes this season, right?
Correct.
So I do think that it's like that was supposed to be the cool epic episode where they get Aaron back and then just like ride off, and then now it's going to be kind of epilogue-y.
Well, not necessarily. We don't know. I don't know, because we did get that cliffhanger of the Titan at the end. That was, do you remember the Titan who ate Aaron's mom?
Oh yeah, dude, that was pretty intense. And,
Yeah.
and then there's no way that dude's hot-headed as fuck. He's gonna go for it. So, but the series has to end next episode, so they're gonna have to end it at some certain you know, they're gonna have to epilogue it in some way and figure out what happens with it. So
I don't know. We don't know how, you know, the next season is going to be introduced, because this one took, what, 5 years to finally come out?
Yeah,
season
2013 to 2017. Like, what the hell?
So who knows if they're going to say, hey, season 2 starts in several seasons, you know, like we'll get it in several months, or they could say another 5 years. I don't know. So for me, Recreators had the most hype episode this week. There's not too much to talk about plot-wise, since this was a very action-oriented episode, but we're definitely entering into the second stage of the anime due to the new powers, the new looks of characters, and the new information that we just saw. Tsukiga Kirei was great. It does a fantastic job at presenting the frustrations and difficulties of high schoolers, and, you know, portraying them as real and important, not just melodramatic drama for the sake of drama. Saikano is getting really good. It's a nice insight on the world of creatives and the seriousness of not being able to improve or grow unless you graduate from the past and make sacrifices. It's not normal to see the amount of progress and character development in this type of anime. I'm probably speaking too soon, because it's likely that the characters may revert back to their old group dynamics after they grow a bit. But as of now, everyone is moving in such a compelling direction. Utaha, Eriri, and even Kato are completely different characters than, you know, they used to be. The only person who has remained sort of the same is the protagonist, but that's actually making the show suspenseful. And if I had to guess, will be the climactic moment of the show, when he finally realizes what he needs to do in order to revitalize his ability as a producer. And then finally, Sekisuru Kado is definitely in its climactic stage and is unbelievably good. It's the type of show that where the story itself is the single quality that makes it stand out. So I can't really talk about it without getting into spoilers. So all I can say is go check out Sekisuru Kado if you're not already, and I'm pretty sure I said that last week too. So yeah, I think that's about it.
That's all I got.
So if you have any questions or suggestions for episode topics, please don't hesitate to send as many as you'd like. You can send them to myself at Secret Otaku on Tumblr, email us at theweeabusachannel.com, or just leave a comment wherever you're listening. Join us on Twitch most Fridays when we record live, and join us on our Discord so you can talk to us whenever you'd like. Also, consider supporting us on Patreon or leaving us an iTunes review if you like what we do. And more than anything, please share the podcast, because word of mouth is pretty much the only way we get new listeners. I want to thank Hentai Dude for our intro music and Kuwagata for our outro. And like always,
get
drunk
and
anime. See you guys next week.
You have to finish your drink for this Mikasa, but
I'll do that right now.
You can catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho-Oh in that tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit. Catch me smoking a sour off the coast of Okinawa. Feeling so high like I'm Ho-Oh in that tower. Take a flight on some shit. Got my dogs riding beside me, blazing hot. That's kamikaze, sacred fire. Don't be mad, I'm lit.